Today I'm going to show you how to make what's known as an Eagle Lifeline, also known as a Boy Scout Lifeline. It can also be called a spiral sinnet. That's what this looks like. There's a few versions of it. On this particular one, we've doubled up the rope. This is actually 30 feet of rope, and it's been brought down to about 18 feet. But again, double-stranded. This is the same one. It's using 15 feet of rope, just a single strand. So you can notice the difference in thicknesses as well as length. There is another version also called a caterpillar sinnet, something like this. Again, this is a single strand, but the difference is in how you loop it, and I'll show that to you in a little bit. So with that, we'll start showing you how to make one of these. All right, so I'm going to start with a 20-foot length of rope that I've already pre-measured and just doubled over. You can use different lengths of rope, but the way you start is going to vary based on that length. So for 20 feet, starting off with 12 inches is probably fine. For 30 feet of rope, which becomes a very long one, that's something this size. This is 18 inches that you're going to start with. If you want to use shorter, like 10 feet or 15 feet, you'll probably start around 8 inches. Anything shorter than that, it really doesn't give you the desired effect and becomes a little bit harder to build. So with that, we'll start with this. So again, I've already measured this out. You've got the loop end like this that you're going to have as the bottom. So this end is just going to drop over. So you've got 24 inches here, so 12 inches, and do that. So you just hold this bottom part and you're just going to let it drape over your hand. Using your other hand, you're going to make an overhand loop. And really, that's just a simple flipping the rope over on itself so that you have a loop like that. All right, it may be a little bit hard to see, but you just, again, take your fingers, loop it over. Then you're going to take that hand, you're going to reach through the loop. And if it's too small, you can just lengthen or open it up. And you're going to pull the rest of these ropes through. Let it drop, and then you're going to pull this tight on itself. If it's twisted, just untwist it a little bit, and then you just pull it tight. So you've got a knot that looks like that. And then this is your bottom piece, and that's what you're going to build on. You don't have to worry about that, because you're going to build on top of this knot with each extra loop. So again, just drop that over. Again, take that. You're going to make that loop. So if you're not sure, try and spread my hands out a little bit. It's going to be a loop that looks like that. Again, hand, loop, put your fingers through, and pull this through. Pull it tight. So this one you can see that the loops are not twisted, but they're down here that they're twisted. Just pull this tight so that it rests one on top of each other, and then just pull it on top of that other knot. All right, so the hard part that most people that I've found have is the loop. So I'm going to try and do this so that you can see what I'm doing. So it's really just a twist. I've just found it easier to do this, put it under here, and twist my thumb over so that you have an overhand loop. So it comes down, around, and back down over it. I'll try and do it with a single strand like this. So when you do it, you can just twist it just like that, and then just hold this. So again, the rope's coming over and down and back. It's not behind it, it's in front of it. So it's kind of facing you. It's closer to you. It's not behind the rope, but in front of the rope. So with two strands like this, again, take your thumb and your forefinger, you're going to let it rope in here and slide in here, and you're going to twist it. Again, put your fingers through, pull these other ropes through. Now, you can see that it's twisted. So as you pull it, you're going to try and untwist it. And it's just to make it, it's mostly for aesthetics, just to make it look pretty with your final product. So all you're going to do is just move it. You're just moving the ropes so that they're one on top of each other. And you kind of pull it through. See how twisted this one is? So all you're going to do is move the ropes so they're untwisted. So that means some of this needs to be untwisted until it sits one on top of each other. And then just pull it tight. And then you pull the knot down on top of each other. So I'm going to do a few without really talking too much, and I'll show you what the spiral looks like. If it does start to twist, just take the rope, put your fingers through it, and just kind of spread it out like that so that these are not twisted, because the more twisted this is, the harder it is to untwist up here, because the twist of the knot will not make for a very aesthetically pleasing finished product. So again, a loop, pull them through, pull them tight, untwist it. All I'm doing is twisting this way. Pull it down on top of the other knot, pull it tight, doesn't have to be overly tight. Loop, pull through, pull the knot. And as you get good at it, the rope will pretty much stay untangled because you'll know that it's starting to tangle. You just kind of loosen up. So loop, pull through, and start to pull this knot on top. Again, if it's loose or if it's knotted, tangled, just work it so that they are on top of each other and that they are not tangled. All right, so as you can see how it gets its name, as you're doing this, you can start to see the spiral that shows up on the outer part of the design. And I mentioned earlier, there's another one that's like this, a caterpillar sinnet. The only difference between the two is the exact same methodology, exact same loop, but the only difference is you're going to alternate your loops. So with the spiral sinnet, you're going to do it this way, but with the other one, you're going to do it just the opposite. So instead, you've got the rope coming down. You would alternate so that the rope would actually be going up like that. So my loop's here and my rope's going up, and you'd pull them through this way. By alternating it, instead of having the spiral going around, you're just going to have one set of knots going up the side. And you do that by just alternating your loops going back and forth. So it's an overhand loop, but with the ropes coming down for the first one and then going up for the second one. So you just flip it around so that the rope is facing either up or down, but you got to alternate it. If you don't, and I'll show you what happens when you don't, you're going to get a little bump. So if you look real closely, these are all neat, nice and neat in a row except for one. You can kind of see right here there's not a knot, this little bump right here, and that's when you do two of the same one in a row, so it doesn't come out perfectly formed. But it's just one. If you keep doing that, it'll still come out fairly even like that. So that's just a question of whether you want to have the spiral or whether you want to have the caterpillar. So again, overhand knot, rope coming down, and then reverse it, overhand knot with the rope coming up. Again, you can take your hand, go over and flip it up this way, or you come under with the rope coming this way. That's the only difference between the two different types of lifelines. So I've been kind of doing the same thing, just making that overhand loop. Mentioned knot or overhand knot before, but it's overhand loop, pulling it tight, making sure that it looks pretty. As you can see, we're getting towards the bottom. It seems like there's a lot of rope left over, but we started with 20 feet. We're still kind of getting, we don't have that much left over. So we're just going to finish it up, making those loops, pulling them tight. As I mentioned, if you're off by a little bit, by setting it up this way, you can kind of just cut off the last couple of ends. It's not going to make a big difference. You're still going to have approximately, in this case, 20 feet of rope, but I think when I'm done, I might even have maybe that much left over. All right, so as we're getting towards the end, this is where it gets a little bit harder just because you've got very little rope. And as you can see, I've probably made a little bit of an error somewhere along the way because I've got about 2 to 3 inches longer on one end than the other. We could just cut that off. But as you get close to the end like this, when you're only doing a little bit, it becomes a little bit harder because you don't want all this hanging off. You can probably get one more loop out of this. So again, we're going to twist this over. I want to really kind of hold that last piece so that you got it because you're going to push these other ones through. The last loop is just a little bit harder because you're dealing with so little bit of rope, and it just makes it a little bit harder because you really can't expand the loop much. So you're just going to push these ones through, making sure you hold on to that last bit, which I've just lost, so I'm going to start again. It's really easy to just pull it back apart. So again, that loop, I'm going to hold that last one tight so you can get these through and find that last little bit of loop again. Sometimes you might have to do it by just pushing one strand through and then the other strand through because your loop is pretty small at this point. Pull that tight, and then you're just going to work that knot back down, pull these last two down, kind of untwist it so that it's, again, looks nice, and then you're done. So I've got a little bit left over that just kind of ties, I can cut this off. You can just leave it depending on, you can either hang it from this end or this end. But when you're done, this is 20 feet worth of rope that you can pull apart fairly easily. Depending on how tight you pulled it, you really are just going to pull these ends through and it'll come apart. But as you pull tight, you're putting a little bit of pressure on it, so it might be a little bit harder to pull apart than, say, a daisy chain or something like that. But when you're all said and done, you've got a roughly 12-inch spiral designed Eagle Lifeline. Thank you.